We've reached a point in gaming where graphics are nearly indistinguishable from reality. In-game AI is approaching robot James Spader levels of sophistication, and yet, for a certain corner of the internet, the game that authentically feels the most real is a nearly 30-year-old, graphically underwhelming, silly fantasy game. Shaq Fu. No, in this video we're going to be unpacking how Earthbound manages to feel more real than games with 8K rendered skin pores by tapping into the essence of what being a kid and an adult feels like. But before we dive in, I should mention that I think it's a mistake to try to reduce Earthbound's appeal to one element. The entire Mother series is funny and weird and sad and optimistic, and so on some level I know it's strange to try to make the argument that Earthbound is the best representation of what being a kid feels like when it's set inside of a world filled with UFOs and time-traveling bumblebees, but I think those surface level trappings lose sight of something more important, which is that there's something about applying a Final Fantasy level mythology to mundane everyday life that I think is emotionally authentic to the experience of being a kid. When I think about what traveling to a new town felt like as a sheltered kid with an overactive imagination, there was a contrast between the reality that I was probably visiting an equally boring suburb to the one I grew up in, and the feeling of excited unfamiliarity that could make a new Arby's feel like in Hyrule. And I think this contrast is exactly what Earthbound taps into by replacing dungeons with suburbs and filling your backyard with aliens. I'm also going to talk about how the game taps into adulthood, but what I'm saying now is that I think the way that Earthbound heightens reality can paradoxically express reality better than reality. Like, if you're scared of the circus, showing someone a photograph of a circus tent wouldn't convey to them what it feels like to you. And so a more authentic depiction would be to put scary teeth on it. Maybe add ominous shadows and give it an aggressive sound like Gaurg. And I think the same feeling is elicited by the game aligning your neighborhood bully with the embodiment of evil, or how it captures a kid's heightened sense of self-importance by positioning you as the savior of the world who's constantly dismissed by adults. And while there's no shortage of examples like this, I started this video by saying Earthbound feels real by also tapping into elements of adulthood, where these days, Arby's, more often than not, just feels like Arby's. But I think this idea of heightening reality to convey reality has applicability here too. Not to bring the room down, but what really sparked this video was a bout of, I think the word depression sounds too depressing, so we'll just call it a case of the gloomies, where it was strange, but the simplest things felt unconquerable. Like just getting out of bed and turning on a lamp felt like, well, I genuinely can't think of a better metaphor for depression than waking up and immediately being attacked by your lamp. I think anyone who's ever dealt with the blues on any level can understand how sometimes a lamp doesn't feel like a lamp. Sometimes a lamp feels like a dragon. Also, there are dragons. I mentioned in my Breath of the Wild video that I think the best fantasy games tap into emotions and experiences that resonate with our own real lives. Like, without that tether to reality, fantasy games are just like a wizard turtle masturbating upside down, which, like, I would play that game, but I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much as something like Earthbound that has the metaphorical wizard turtle masturbation, but structures it inside of themes and emotions that are familiar to me. And so as much fun as it is to build a life-accurate character model of yourself or rescue a princess in a castle, I think the catharsis that comes from mythologizing mundane parts of our lives and then overcoming them partly explains why this nearly 30-year-old, graphically underwhelming, silly fantasy game is still being played and loved by nearly 30-year-old, graphically underwhelming, silly people. Thanks for watching. That ending felt weird.